Hey everybody, I'm Sierra.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome back to another episode of The Unsolved Couple, where every week I drag Ben along to talk about
unsolved mysteries.
Okay, I'm excited to talk to you.
This is such a good one.
Whoa.
I know.
We got It's a Good One from Ben.
Yeah.
Let the record show.
Was wild. Wildly ridiculous.
You came home very excited to tell me about this episode.
Well, like we said.
And I think this is the first time you've called a case.
I did.
Yeah.
I called this one. I took dibs on this one. Only because I watched it first.
Yeah.
And I called dibs on this one story that took up half the episode.
Yeah.
There was a commercial break. At least there would have been.
I think I clocked it on
26 minutes.
Yeah, 26 minutes of like a 40-something minute episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was half the episode.
So just so everyone knows, heads up, we'll break it up a little differently. I'm going to tell you two stories and then we're going to end with Ben's story because it does. And I think it's going to we're going to have some fun discussion with it. But before we get started, I wanted to share with you guys an podcast that I've recently discovered, and I'm excited for you guys to listen.
Good evening. You're listening to the Truth Tank podcast trailer. Today, the truth has become harder to discern. Fake news, censoring of facts, media censorship, ideology over logic. The truth has become subjective. That old saying, there are two kinds of truth, rings true today. What is fact and what is fiction? You can take the blue pill and go about your day, or you can take the red pill and take a deep dive into the world of conspiracies, history's mysteries, the hidden and the forbidden past, current and global events, UFOs, aliens and the UAV phenomenon, the world of the paranormal and high strangeness, as well as the ongoing war on pop culture and society, with the occasional movie review thrown in for good measure. If this has piqued your curiosity and you want to find out how all this ties together, join me, the Tank, every month for a deep and detailed dive into the hidden and murky world of the truth. You can find and follow the Truth Tank on Facebook and Instagram. You can listen and download the episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts from. May the truth be with you. Tinfoil hat not included.
Okay, and number 2 order of business that I'm excited to talk to you about, babe, is at the end of last week's episode, I challenged our listeners to join me in getting you to dress up with me for a silly Halloween costume. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the list of what I've come up with.
Oh, dear.
And I want you to tell me, and we'll start from like lowest priority that I think it's going to be the least hard for you to dress up in to the hardest.
So really, at the end of the day, I have to dress up.
Yes.
So the non-dressing.
But the more crazy this gets, the more I will consider a photo shoot to go with it. So
that is definitely not going to happen. 100% won't happen.
It will happen, potentially. I already have a photographer who loves doing Halloween photo shoots. I did one as Maleficent with her before. Anyways, so as of this moment of recording, let me tell you how many downloads we have. And we're going to build from that number.
Are we going off total or monthly, weekly?
Total downloads. Okay. So as of today, all time, we have 5,519 downloads.
Okay.
Okay. So the very first one that I want to do is I want to dress up like the bullies from Hocus Pocus. The bullies from Hocus Pocus. And you have to dress up like ice, and you have to let me shave the word ice in the back of your head. How many downloads?
First off,
do we have to get by we'll get rid of it the next day. You'll be fine. Okay, you can do it. Your work lets you get away with a lot currently, especially when it comes to your hair at the moment. So I don't want to hear this as an excuse. Also, I have a few connections at your job, and I might call in a favor or two. In fact, some of them listen to this, so they might be actually ready to all download when they find out what else. Okay, so how many downloads by? Because I need a month to get our costumes. So September, like 30th, yeah. How many downloads by September 30th do we need to hit for you to dress up like this?
100,000.
Oh my goodness. Benjamin David Turner.
I don't know. Give me a number and I will either agree or disagree.
Okay. 8,000.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Addams Family. Full Addams Family, including the mustache and the pinstripe suit.
Well, that one, 100%. I'd do that one for free.
Oh, okay. So we're going to go with that pending that's the go-to then in case none of them. Zach Morrison and Kelly from Saved by the Bell.
Sure.
Okay. That's okay.
Each one would, that will 9,000. Sure. I'll do that one.
9,000. Okay. Edward Scissorhands and the girl.
First off, I've never seen Edward Scissorhands.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. I've
Okay.
never seen that movie.
All right.
Oh, that one. Ooh, I do not like that one. I don't like the look of that period in the story. I don't know. 12,000.
Okay. You're starting to get sweaty over there.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Okay. Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet at the ball.
I'll give that one to you at, what was the last one? 9? I'll give that one to you at 10,000.
I think you said 10,000 for Edward Scissorhands.
No, I said 12.
Oh, 12. Okay. Now
I really don't want to do that.
The Pinnacle.
15,000. 15. I actually want to say 20,000.
15,000 downloads, and you will dress up like David Bowie as the Goblin King from the Labyrinth, and I get to dress up like the girl at the ball.
Sure, 15,000.
All right, guys, you have been called. It is your time to step up. Please share this podcast with everyone you know. Download it on every device. We're going to get to these numbers and make all of my Halloween dreams come true. Okay. I'm excited to see how this works out. Also, you can leave a 5-star rating and review, guys, and put in there, because the people that read it will be really confused as to what you would like to see Ben dressed up for as Halloween. And I will count that towards extra bonus points in download numbers.
Extra bonus points. Well,
if we get a bunch of downloads at all calling you the Goblin King, then I'm going to add that to the numbers. Okay. So I have got 2 stories for you guys today.
We're episode 16, right?
Yep, sorry, season 2, episode 16.
No, I just was making sure we were.
Yeah, and the very first one is called John Thumper Brown, and it's Wanted. Thumper, which is from Bambi. And I'm sad that this man got this nickname somehow, but
yeah, I think it meant something different.
Probably. 34-year-old Jonathan Thumper Brown is a meth manufacturer. He was a high school teacher who found out that he had cancer.
That's not true.
Oh, sorry. That's a different one. Wanted for the creation and distribution of drugs. He has been involved in several drug labs and also a member of the motorcycle group, the Hessens. He is a federal fugitive and has outstanding warrants in California, Tennessee, and Oregon. Thumper managed to elude detection until November 1987, when after a lengthy stakeout, he was tracked to one of the laboratories near Lancaster, California. Officers observed him carrying 6 containers of acetone to a trailer which contained a meth lab. As he tried to leave the area, authorities closed in and arrested him. He claimed that the acetone belonged to another person, and he was just handing it over. He was just delivering it to them. Wasn't his.
Yeah.
Just holding on to it for him.
Yeah.
He was
Like-
charged with possession of methamphetamine. After his arrest, a search warrant was obtained and a sizable meth lab was discovered. However, Thumper posted bail and vanished before more serious charges were filed against him. Authorities believe that his lab could have produced amphetamines that would be worth up to $1 million. We are shown his picture, and they're asking for anyone to call in.
He's on the run.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Update.
In February 1988, an informant told the authorities that Thumper was hiding out in a drug lab near Medford, Oregon. Once again, Medford, Oregon in the 80s was a wild place to be.
Sure was.
When officers forced their way into the lab, the occupants began to fire. An exchange of gunfire, 2 officers were wounded and 1 Heston was killed. When tear gas was placed in the lab, occupants surrendered. It was later determined that Thumper had escaped before police arrived, had not been seen since. Oh,
Could we just
sorry, I totally put my update in the wrong thing. So he was caught once, and then he's actually caught again in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But yes, sorry, go ahead.
can we just say a gunfire ensued and then tear gas got shot into a
meth lab. I feel like we've learned a lot about meth labs since they probably popped up. I don't know how long methamphetamines have been around for. I don't think it's meth labs I don't think is a relatively old process. I think it's kind of a newer thing. We've learned quite a bit.
When I lived in Indiana for a little bit.
Uh-huh.
We were out and about, and we came up to the fire department and there was a house just in the middle of the neighborhood, completely blew up and was gone, like gone.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing. There wasn't practically anything left at that house.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah. So sorry. That is where Unsolved Mysteries left us. I mixed up with, because they caught him once, he got away. He got
tracked him
twice.
to a place.
He got caught again, got away. And then he was captured again on February 24th, 1990, living in Vegas.
That was
the one, yeah.
Real
Due
update.
to a tip from a female companion of his, he was finally convicted of drug manufacturing, sentenced to 30 years, and has since been released. It was released in 2016. Tried to find some information on him. His name was Jonathan John Brown. Jonathan Brown is a very common name. So I found one message board that said something along the lines that he, whenever this was posted, that he was working and was living a fairly quiet life and had managed to stay out of trouble and didn't want to be known for the worst thing he'd ever done. So again, I couldn't find any more arrest records for him, at least that I could do on my end. So
Where did he serve time at?
where did he serve time at? It was a federal, let's see, the United States versus Jonathan John Brown. I don't know. I
know when you get served federal, you can get moved from state to state, just depending on which prison they want to send you to. But I was just kind of curious.
No, I didn't see where he was held at, just that this was a federal charge. So he was in federal court. Much like P. Diddy is right now. Yep.
Interesting.
Okay. So we kind of knocked that one out. It was just a wanted. They ended up capturing
really
him.
Quick.
Yeah, he served his time and he was released. So sounds like, hopefully he's making better choices by not cooking methamphetamines.
Let's hope.
Yeah. All right. So our next story is Steve Sandlin. And this is labeled as an unexplained death at the time that this was aired. That was technically true. We'll go on to talk a little bit more about kind of how things have changed. So 21-year-old Steven was a rookie police officer in Mountain Air, which is one word. And that's weird to me, New Mexico. His father, Tom, was a career law enforcement officer. Ever since Steve was a child, he planned on following in his father's footsteps. In March of 1988, he announced to his family that he had been accepted as a member of the Mountain Air Police Department. Early on the evening of May 7th, so we're only a few months later of the same year, 1988, while working alone in the police station, he was found shot. Police Chief David Carson and several other officers arrived at the scene soon after. They found him lying on the ground with his gun next to him. Bloodstains were found around him. David asked him what had happened, but he was unresponsive. An ambulance was called and the EMTs began working on him to try to save his life. Sadly, he soon died, and after being on the force for just 8 weeks. Stephen's gun was found by his side. Authorities believe that the fatal bullet may have come from his own weapon. The manner of death was first originally thought to be accidental and or suicide. However, his family did not believe this. They'd become concerned that he was murdered, possibly as a result of a conspiracy. Former Attorney General James Scartanoin.
Does his name have a question mark?
Yeah, it does.
You say it like it's a question.
I also believed that he had been murdered. Murdered. There was no evidence, in his opinion, of suicide and or accident. James was actually fired, and another assistant attorney general resigned over the case. The most controversial alleging regarding the case was that the identity of his killers was deliberately covered up by law enforcement officers. Mountain Air is an isolated community located 80 miles southeast of Albuquerque. We haven't been to Albuquerque. You've been to Albuquerque?
I have been to Albuquerque. I have passed through and I've stayed the night in a hotel in Albuquerque.
That's it. Oh, actually, I think that's where we flew in. Okay.
No, you flew into El Paso.
Oh, okay.
I was out in New Mexico doing training.
Yeah.
6 months. That's what.
But just one night. You didn't spend long term in Albuquerque.
No, what was I in Albuquerque for? Oh, Christmas. When I came home for Christmas, we all drove up to Albuquerque and
to get a flight.
We flew out of Albuquerque back home.
Back home. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you don't know much about the town then, I guess.
No.
Yeah. And was known to be the center of a highly cultivated marijuana industry. Not Albuquerque, but Mountain Air. Despite this, the town's police department consisted of only 4 men for an entire town.
How big was the town? How big is the town?
You know what?
I don't know.
I actually did not even think to look that up, and nor did they mention that.
Here, I'll look it up while you
Mountain Air.
Tell the story.
Okay. While Steve began working for the police department, he was enthusiastic about his new job and often worked during his off hours. According to Tom, he really enjoyed the job at first. However, and I think Tom was his stepfather?
We had a dad and he had a stepdad.
Yeah, his dad, Tom, was in. Okay, so this is his father. He really enjoyed the job at first. However, within the first week or so went by, his attitude started to change. He told Tom that the job was not like he had expected it to be, and he felt that there was something wrong. However, he did not elaborate any further to his dad. On the afternoon of Steve's death, he returned to an empty police station after arguing with Dave, who is the chief, right? So that's his superior.
Yeah.
Over some tickets that he had written.
So I got your numbers for you. Well, I got 2 different. Right now, it's only 800 people.
Good night.
And in 1990, there's 2 different things. One says around 900 and another says 400.
Okay, so it's a small.
So 4 police officers for less than 1,000 people.
Yeah, that's actually pretty normal. But the fact that it was known to be a very, I guess it wasn't a secret. that there was a significant some sort of marijuana growth organization happening in that town. Okay. So he'd arguing with his supervisor or superior, David, over some tickets he had written. Dave told him to slow down because he didn't want him to, quote, burn out. And Unsolved Mysteries interviews this man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a weird interview. So I did look into this a tiny little bit about, like, I think the perception is most police stations like having a lot of traffic ticket stops because I think that generates some money for things. However, I looked up on a couple of message boards that it was fairly common. And again, I don't know if this is the case, that in election years, a lot of the times, like, mayors or stuff will actually, like, have the police force or the sheriff's department write less of them to kind of put the townspeople in a little bit of a better mood, which I thought was really kind of funny that this was like something that maybe people inside these smaller communities know of. I have no clue if this has anything to do with that, but to me, it was at first weird that he would say that out of the goodness of his heart, he was telling this new shiny little police officer to not write as many tickets. Did you think that was?
Yeah, here's the thing. The way he said
his whole air about him is instantly off-putting.
I didn't like the guy. I just didn't like him. The way he was talking about it, the words he
was
used.
Like almost like casually like laying back in his chair the whole time. He was very defensive. Like,
yeah, and his whole, I didn't want you to burn out by writing tickets. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. And here's the thing. He definitely, so we're going to find out that his account of it is very different than Steve's account. Steve actually gets on the phone and calls his girlfriend. He gets back to an empty police station, calls his girlfriend because he's so upset. And he makes it very clear to his girlfriend that this wasn't just like a casual, hey man, I'm worried about you. It was like a reprimand. His boss had like yelled at him and he was upset. And he basically said, if they want me just to hang out and be a, quote, security guard, then like, fine.
Yeah, so I had a massive problem. And that's, I guess, because this is the first story.
Yes, and then the chief gets on or whatever he is. And he was like, oh, I was like doing this as like I'm concerned about you getting burnt out and just to kind of slow down. It wasn't a reprimand. It was just a casual conversation.
Yeah. See, I don't believe this guy.
Yeah.
And all because his girlfriend tells us that she got the call and he had just said that he'd gotten into an argument with the chief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, the fact that the chief is lying so blatantly about something. Here's the thing. You are the chief of police. You are allowed to have said, yeah, I reprimanded him. He was working outside of hours and writing tickets off duty, X, Y, or Z. That's not a good look for our police. Own that. But you like deflected anything from a simple lie, and you had the right to get after him. You were supposed to be training him. He was a new hire.
And see, that's the problem I had is I truly believe he did yell at him.
Yeah.
He got after him and clearly he sent him back to the station.
Yes, exactly.
He was so mad at him that he said, go back to the station and just sit there.
Because the station is empty, which is a wild concept to me. The police station is vacant. But if you're a
patrol officer,
yeah,
you don't sit at the station.
No, you don't.
Your job is to patrol and take calls or be a presence.
Well, and there was an event that night, and I don't know if this was an Unsolved Mysteries or somewhere else I read. There was like a citywide or townwide, especially if there was only several hundred people there, talent show. Hold, please. We've got a barking dog and an Amazon package. And we're back. Okay. So, yeah. And so, like I said, I've read, I think somewhere else that there was like a town talent show or something. There was
He says he has an alibi that night because of this little meeting he was at and a bunch of people saw
Yeah, so I
him.
found out it seemed like there was a talent show. I don't know if this was a annual thing or a big deal thing, but a town of 700 plus people, there's probably not a lot going on. But then in my mind, that meant too that you'd have all your patrol officers out making sure that there wasn't people breaking your typical. Anyways, yeah, he got sent back. He calls his girlfriend and is explaining to her that he's upset about this interaction. And as he's on the phone with his girlfriend, he hears what she believes is a female's voice start talking in the background. And it kind of starts to escalate. Voices are being raised. And he actually puts the hand over the phone, old school phone, to kind of muffle out what he was doing, what she could hear. And he tells Michelle, no big deal, and that he had to go. It's just no big deal. I got to go. And he hangs up the phone. Okay. Approximately 45 minutes later at 7:45, Dave received word that so Dave is the chief, that Officer Steve had been shot. When he examined the scene, and he says this on Unsolved Mysteries, he found no evidence of any sort of struggle. What was the words that he used? There's no other shots fired. He believed this, and he used to the naked eye, it looked like nothing happened or something. He used a very weird term.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly what term he used. But
I think you brought the point was but you are a police officer. You're not like the common person to come in. You're supposed to see things that the normal person can't see.
Yeah, you're supposed to look. You're supposed to scrutinize.
Yeah, you're supposed to scrutinize the scene. And his immediate suspect and the kind of theory he pushes for is that he had taken his own life and just kind of committed suicide. Yeah. However, again, his family insists that he was actually really happy with his life. He had a girlfriend. He was in a career that he was excited to be in. He was young. He didn't have any kind of warning signs of that. And
he had
so
plans with his girlfriend.
Yeah, just things. And again, like we've said before, there is no perfect playbook on warning signs for people that choose to take their own.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of
life
things here that don't.
But it's like you've said before, you have to keep all possibilities open until you can eliminate one. And to jump so quickly to that this was an accident or it was suicide, eliminate without any sort of proof of eliminating other options, you're kind of doing a disservice.
Well, and the thing is if someone, usually we know, go to take their own life, there's things they either leave or do beforehand. Okay. I'm not saying it's still a possibility, but what I'm saying is if all of a sudden he's like, oh, he had plans the next day. He had
just been on the phone with his girlfriend.
Yeah. So that should lead you, hey, this should lead us to look at
and she heard a confrontation.
And things to maybe we should dig deeper and not just close the book on that.
So Chief Dave comes back on Unsolved Mysteries and says, well, clearly, if it wasn't suicide, then this was an accident, because I found out later that he liked to play with his gun, and so he probably shot himself accidentally.
Yeah, that's his only other explanation.
Yeah. Again, with what evidence?
Yeah.
Right? And the people that knew him best, and here's the thing. Gun safety has probably evolved over the years. But his dad was in law enforcement. And one thing I do know about a lot of guys in law enforcement or people that work and serve around places with weapons is they do tend to take gun safety very seriously. It's a part of their training. And then that's passed down typically.
But they said there was very little residue on his hands.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. So, and anyway, so.
Sorry, did I steal your thunder?
No, that's okay. He believed that Steve was likely playing with his gun, sitting alone in the police station by himself.
Pointed at his head.
And the other thing I can tell you about guns too is that they don't accidentally go off. They don't get dropped on the ground. I don't know. I don't know what they thought he was doing with it. But however, his mom and like other people in his life, no. So Steve's autopsy unfortunately gives us inconclusive results. Some believe that the gun may have been as far as 2 feet away from his head when it was fired. An unusual distance for self-inflicted wounds. Secondly, as Ben told us, there was insignificant traces of gunpowder found on his hand, especially for someone who had just fired a shot. Now, gunpowder residue can be on your hands from handling a weapon, small amounts, right? Just putting it in your holster, maybe, I don't know. But
also if someone else shot you.
Yeah, that was the big thing with that girl and the shotgun. A couple episodes ago, she had trace amounts on her hands and they still were telling everybody that she did it herself. And I'm like, or she could have put her hand up.
If you're in the vicinity.
Yeah. Yeah. So sadly, there were, so this kind of just makes everything like, I don't know. It doesn't give anybody a for sure answer, right? So despite the information from the autopsy, the Attorney General's office refused to rule out suicide. Dissatisfied, the family started to conduct their own investigation. Stephen's stepfather, Edward, believed that Steve had been murdered because he knew something. Tom agreed that he was killed to keep him quiet about something nefarious that was occurring in mountain air. The family's investigation uncovered one possible motive for his murder. After only a few weeks of active duty, he'd begun to patrol alone and would oftentimes wait outside local bars in order to apprehend drunk drivers. Smart. On the night of April 11th, just 1 month before his death, he arrested a local resident and made an important discovery. A large bag of the devil's lettuce was found on the car floor, a.k.a. marijuana, a.k.a. Mary Jane, a.k.a. Happy Grass.
Okay. Got lots of names there.
The following day, a warrant was obtained and at the resident's home was searched. 54 pounds of marijuana was discovered with a street value close to $100,000.
That's actually a lot in someone's house.
Yeah, that's a lot. Because here's the thing. Marijuana's not very heavy when it's all packed up.
That is a lot.
Yeah. So adjusted for inflation, that would be about $271,000 today. But
maybe not today now that it's legal.
Okay, so that's what I'm going to get to. $100,000 adjusted for today is $271,000. However, marijuana is legal, so maybe I wouldn't get in trouble for this Google search. But I started looking into the price of marijuana to buy in New Mexico.
Okay.
Today in New Mexico, a high quality of weed, because that's, of course, if you have crappy weed, you're not publishing your prices, is about $283 per ounce, totaling us about $244,500 in today. So it's actually gone
pretty close.
Yeah, but it's lost value, 271 to 244.
But now it's legal.
I know.
So there's competition.
I know.
Capitalism, baby.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that this New Mexico weed was like high quality, good weed, right? So within days of the arrest, Stephen started to receive death threats. I just still can't get over this, that this is just over some marijuana. To me, as I'm watching this, I'm like, this is not heroin or cocaine.
Yeah, but 50
But
pounds?
I remembered what was going on during this time.
The war on drugs.
The war on drugs. So every kind of drug. If you got caught with that amount, you were looking at some hefty.
A lot of time.
Yeah. And I just think I'd completely forgotten that, yeah, it was a big deal at the time to have this much marijuana on you. Yeah, so he starts receiving death threats. They, however, were unfortunately never able to trace them. Several other officers started also receiving threats from local drug dealers. During this time, the New Mexico Attorney General's office was investigating reports that Mountainair police had carelessly handled evidence. Steve had even been questioned by investigators on the day before his death. He told Tom that there was something going on in Mountainair that he did not agree with. He asked Tom what he should do in this situation, and Tom told him, "You need to tell the truth."
His dad.
Right? Yeah. He went to his dad for advice, and his dad said, "You got to tell the truth. You got to be honest." Especially like now the state's investigating this.
Do what's right, man. Always.
After Steve's death, his house was searched by authorities. 3 days later, his family arrived in Mountainair to collect his belongings. While they were in the kitchen, his mom opened a drawer which contained several bags of marijuana. They couldn't understand how authorities had missed it during their search. It was not well hidden. Dave believed that someone had planted it there to make it look like to make Steve look bad. Side note to that, I did some research. From my understanding, leaving marijuana in someone's house was a sign, an indicator that they potentially, it was like a calling card, like how the mob used to do things. Like this person was taken out because they were affecting business and they would leave the marijuana there, not to make them look bad, but to let other people know this is why he's gone. Yeah.
Okay.
Which to me makes a little bit more sense because
it's a calling card.
It's a calling card, exactly, because no one, even the dirty cops in the police thing, ever accused him of being a part of any drug activity. So the two to me didn't correlate. So I did a little bit more research. That's what I found. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. I've never been involved in the mob.
Maybe it's like the myth of the shoes on the power lines.
Maybe it is. Yeah. But maybe that's the excuse teenagers could use now if they find a bunch of marijuana. The mom, this is just a calling card. I was actually going to tattletale on somebody, and this is my warning not to.
Oh, dear.
Steve also always recorded his traffic stops. Back before body cams were a thing, right? In a small cassette recorder.
This is genius.
Yeah. I actually thought this was kind of like, because most of the time I feel like cops really don't want every like single thing that they have done necessarily like.
They do now.
But now, yes, now they do. But I don't think it was as big of a thing back then to think about stuff like that.
But did you know there was another police officer that did that?
That was the girl that went, the little miss that went missing.
Gonna say, he did that.
He recorded that, and that's how they were able to verify that he had pulled her over and also let her go.
Yeah.
Because if he hadn't, he was technically the last like verified person to see her before she interacted with the man that took her life.
Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, hey, this kid, first off, he's too smart
for Mountainair
to be in a 4-person police department. He needs to be in a better police department.
It makes you wonder if they had just encouraged him to like, if they really wanted him out so they could keep doing corrupt things, why wouldn't you just like taken that route? I don't know. You're not going to get in trouble for murder. I don't know if you just ship him off somewhere else. Or why did you hire him in the first place?
I don't know.
Like, I have so many questions about that because we're actually not in Unsolved Mysteries. I found out later that the chief of police had warrants out for his arrest in other states for writing bad fraudulent checks.
Shocking.
And he got appointed to this position.
By the mayor.
Uh-huh.
First off, a town this big has a police department is baffling to me. Because usually...
Yeah, Myrtle Creek has a police department where I grew up. The town is 3,000 people.
Yeah, but what usually happens is that the sheriff's office just patrols it.
Yeah, we live in a tiny little area outside of Tucson, but we are outside of Tucson city limits.
We live in the suburbs.
Yeah.
We live outside.
But we've got a pretty big population under this zip code.
Yeah, we have our own fire department, but we don't have our own police.
Mm-mm.
It's just the sheriff's office that patrols this.
Yeah.
So for a town less than 1,000 people to just even have their own police department, because then that means that the town has to fork up the
Where did that
resources.
money come from, you think?
The resources for police vehicles, a station, all that, instead of just putting money into the pot for the county and letting the county take care of it for you.
Yeah.
It is wild to me that this even exists.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see when it was formed, if that had anything to do with these.
I'd be interested if it still even exists. I'm looking it up.
Okay, Ben's going to look it up for us. Okay. So, but however, of course, in the search of the home, the mini cassette tapes were missing. And to this day, it is still not known what has happened to them. James spoke to several witnesses who claimed that they had seen David or his vehicle outside of the Mountaineer Police Department between 7:15 and 7:25 on the night of the shooting. He claimed that the witnesses, so David then claims that the witnesses were lying. And according to him, he was in the company of 200 to 300 people, or potentially a third of the town, at a public function at Mountain Air High School. He claimed that he spoke with several people that could place him there at the time. He actually also he bragged to us that he took a lie detector test, but you know how we feel about that. If you're already a bad person making bad choices and you don't care and you don't have a guilt, you're going to get flying colors on your lie detector test. So several questions remain about Stephen's death, including if Steve was murdered, why was he killed inside the police station? Why was marijuana discovered at his house? Do his fellow police officers more than they are telling about his death? And that is kind of where that leaves us. They still have the police station, babe, because they changed the name of it. Yeah, I just saw that in my notes. Yeah.
So, I look up. They still have their own police department.
Okay. You ready for your update?
Ready for my update. It
is still technically unresolved. Authorities note that evidence at the scene suggested that Stephen's body had actually been moved once a real actual investigation was done. Although he had been shot on the right side of his head, fragments, blood, and other matter were found on the wall to the right of his body. Yeah. So, in 1989, the Attorney General office asked that the Los Alamos National Laboratory for help examining the case. Lab scientists determined that he was ducking away from the gun when he was shot.
I did read that they also ruled it a homicide because of
there was other inconsistencies and injuries to his face, like he had taken a punch, or a few of them. In May of 1995, his case was officially classified as a homicide and listed as a slain in the line of duty officer. One of the prime suspects in the case, Melvin King, died in 2004. He was a local resident that Steve arrested a few weeks before his death.
He was the drug dealer that he arrested.
Yeah. Interestingly, the marijuana confiscation from his home later went, quote, missing from the Mountaineer Police Department evidence room, and he was never charged in the case.
And
that how many pounds of 34 or 54 pounds?
4 pounds of marijuana just up and missed in
with
the police
4
department.
People working.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
In May of 2019, Mountain Air dedicated its renovated police station to Steve, naming it the Stephen A. Sandlin Memorial Police Station. And actually, from what I can read, I read an article from a local reporter there that sounds like one of the EMTs at the scene, I think at one point went on to be mayor, and he was a big hand in getting that name changed and was very big about the fact that he did not believe that this was an accident or,
playing with your gun.
Yeah.
Suicide.
Yeah. So if you guys have, as of right now, the most recent updated article I can find is that as of today, actually as of 2004, they were sending off some DNA evidence for familiar DNA testing. I don't know if those results have come back in or if they came back inconclusive, so they just never reported on it.
Say 2004, 2024.
Sorry, 2024. Yeah. The cold case line, the New Mexico State Police are handling this now.
Yeah, I read an article that the state police had just started their own cold case division in 2024.
Yep.
And this was one of the cases they were taking on.
Yep.
So there is not a lot about it because, one, it's an open case.
We don't know what evidence the police have. Yes, exactly.
It's an open case and it's actively being
worked on. Yep. So I actually have the tip line phone number. So if you have any information, have heard anything or seen anything, from my understanding, like a lot of these cases, the police likely already know what happened or who the suspects are. They're just needing that one piece of information. So if you've ever heard anyone talking about this case or bragging about it, or, it's a small town, people talk, please call in at 505-570-5244. If you are scared, you can remain anonymous. You can always email us at unsolvedcouplepod@gmail.com, and I will pass your tip on anonymously for you if you even need an additional line of anonymity. Is that the word? Between you and the tip.
I didn't like the story. It just...
Well, you having been around law enforcement people your whole life and then working in this field to some capacity, dirty law enforcement gets you angrier than a lot of things very quickly.
Yeah, I didn't like the chief from the
No, from the beginning, the moment he's on screen.
My biggest issue I had was one, he lied about that whole thing, his whole fight with him. You chewed him out.
Yeah, own it.
100%. Which makes me think, why did you chew him out? And why are you lying about it?
Yeah.
And then 2, when he says at the end, I took a polygraph test, the FBI. And the way he talks about how he doesn't even say, I passed the poly.
Nope, he doesn't.
He just says that there was no
indication of deception or something. Yeah, he says it very like...
The way he talks about it, I'm like,
Yeah, and I read in several message boards that this man was not a good guy.
He doesn't look like
a good guy. There's several posts, but one in particular claimed to be a man who was the stepson of this guy, who said that his stepdad was a violent, aggressive man, and that he wholly believes had a hand in that murder.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. In the way they talk about it in this story, it is very clear. They don't give you a lot of actual details or evidence that they had, because you can tell they're just... I'm like, oh, you guys are still playing it close to the chest, which I get.
And I don't think he was the only one involved.
No, I don't think
so.
No,
maybe he didn't pull the trigger. Maybe he did. But he was there that night.
I don't know, but the guy, don't trust him.
Nope. All right. Okay, guys. Everyone, that's all of our hard stuff. So let's sit down and get comfy and enjoy Daddy Ben telling us a story.
Don't ever say it like that, please. All right. Are you ready for this?
Oh,
this is so good.
I'm so ready for this.
We might be hyping this one up better than what it's going to come out. All right.
Okay.
This is a story of reincarnation. Yes, you heard that right. Reincarnation. Okay. Robert Stack comes in, tells us about that reincarnation. It's pretty, what's the word I'm looking for?
He says it's widely accepted, doesn't he?
He says it's always been accepted in some circles, but it is fought over, I guess. I don't know. Controversial.
Reincarnation is a part of a lot of people's spiritual practices.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what they say. So he says they're going to tell us, we're going to hear a story of a lady who supposedly is claiming to be reincarnated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Her name is Georgia Rudolph. And she tells us, she's interviewed, and she tells us since she was a little girl, she's had these visions and these dreams. She first tells us about this vision dream thing that she's had of her standing out in the cold with an older lady. And here comes a carriage, horse-drawn carriage. She says, guys, the way she talks, she actually has a very soothing voice, but it's very drawn out.
Yeah, the way she talks was wild.
It's wild.
And it makes me feel like she really is in no hurry to go anywhere.
No. Mm-mm. She tells us, I can feel the cold. I feel the night. I can
How does the night feel?
The leather. I can feel the movement of the carriage. This is what she's saying. And she's dead serious. Okay.
I am one for theatrics, but this lady has got like me shown up big time.
All right. But we learned Georgia Rudolph is a 41-year-old registered nurse who lives in Macon, Georgia. Okay.
It's making me crazy.
And she was born in Columbus, Ohio. At 3, she went into foster care, but at 5, she was adopted. And she says ever since then, she started having these memories and these dreams. We get like 5 minutes of her talking about how she feels these things. She's lived them, but she doesn't know what they are. And she
I
just
honestly
truly
think
feels
the pace of her speech, this could have been done under 15 minutes, but every word that comes out of that woman's mouth is a descriptive, like thesaurus. Like, it's like I don't know. She took a lot of creative writing, apparently, because she speaks like that.
Yeah. She's very detailed.
Yeah.
But she tells us when she was a little girl, she used to draw this picture of a girl over and over. And if it wasn't right, she knew exactly what it was supposed to look like. And if it wasn't right, she would throw it away. But she would keep drawing this picture of this girl and this picture of this house.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew it. She knew what they looked like, and it had to be drawn that way. But she does tell us, like, all of these images, these visions, these dreams that she has were of a girl of 2 different ages.
Mm-hmm.
When she had a vision, it was of this girl between 8 and 9.
Yeah.
And then the other ones was of this girl between 18 and 19. So that was the 2 ages she would have these dreams and visions. And she come to learn that these visions, they all were in the same time period. It was the turn of the century. And there were always, a lot of the visions were around a stern wheeler, which is pretty much a steamboat with the big paddle on the back. But to her, she'd never seen, or she never had been around her whole life. So she doesn't know why she was dreaming about this girl and a steam wheeler. Okay. And then in some of her dreams and visions, there was a man in a brown suit with a derby hat and horse-drawn carriages. But, she doesn't know where this comes. She even found her birth parents to like, hey, is this part of my earlier childhood?
Mm-hmm.
And no. So she doesn't know why she's having these. Okay.
Okay.
So are we reincarnated? I don't know, people. I don't know. But we get a man called Douglas Smith. He's got a PhD. He's a clinical psychologist. She goes to him in the early 80s. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to help her. And he's talking to us about how Georgia is this very believable, laid back, not crazy, I guess. He doesn't say it, but that's pretty much what he's saying.
He can't find any diagnoses that would explain her feeling this way.
Mm-hmm. So, how does he treat her, Sierra?
With therapy.
Mm-hmm. What kind of therapy?
Well, clearly counseling, maybe recommendations on some medication, maybe some therapy on her childhood.
No. Hypnosis.
Oh,
hypnosis therapy.
Hypnosis therapy.
People, we get a real video. Unsolved Mysteries then asks her and him to do another session of hypnosis therapy.
Uh-huh.
And here's the best part. I'd like to know, I'm not a hypnosis person. He does this therapy where he hypnotizes her, but she still remembers everything she's saying. Explain that to me.
I actually don't know a lot about.
But they tell us that that's the hypnosis therapy that they do with her.
Okay.
So Unsolved Mysteries asks him and her to do another session where they record it, and you get to see the real footage of this. It's wild.
I agree. It was wild. She was crying in one of them. Do you see? She had tears coming down her face.
All right. He asks her he calls her by Georgia in the tape. And she says, I don't know that name. Well, what's your name? She tells him, my name is Sandra Jean Jenkins. That she was born in 1985.
1985?
1895.
1895.
Man,
Ooh, dyslexia is rubbing off on you.
Yeah, it's contagious.
Therapy can help. Actually, hypnotic therapy. Yeah.
So that she was born in 1895. And all these therapy sessions, they bring out more details. We find out that the family owned these steam wheelers, that she was engaged to be wed to the man in the derby hat.
Yep.
His name is Tommy Hicks. They were sweethearts.
They were lovers.
They were sweethearts.
Lovers.
All right. So we learn she learns all these details in her hypnosis therapy sessions.
Great. So now we've got some names and some details. We could look up some ancestry records.
Okay. No, don't be getting around. And in these therapy sessions too, the word Marietta came up.
Okay.
And that leads her to Marietta, Ohio.
Okay.
All right. So in 1985, she travels to Marietta, Ohio. She meets up with a local reporter named Ted Bowers. And he says, I'll show you around town. She goes, no, you won't. I will show you. So she shows
Especially since I was here in the 1800s.
Early 1900s.
Early 1900s.
And late 1800s.
Yeah.
She knows it.
Yeah.
She's walking around town. She even tells Ted, this used to be an ice cream parlor. And she describes the interior of the ice cream parlor to a T, even though he's not quite sure, but he talks to a friend. They're like, yeah, that's what it was. So we get Ted. Ted clearly doesn't believe her.
No,
but he says, listen, she knew things that only a local would know. I don't know why she knows these things. I don't know how, but hey, I don't know. He literally was like, I don't know.
But he wasn't buying it.
He wasn't buying the reincarnation thing. All right. But she's like, I don't know. I just know this town. She realized that this is where this girl was from, but not quite from there. Because then they travel to another town 5 miles outside of Marietta. I don't know how she puts this together. She doesn't tell us. But I'm sorry. I'm looking at my notes here.
She drives into the other town and she's driving around and finds.
She finds Newport, which is 5 miles outside. And then as she's driving around this town, she comes up on this house.
Yep.
And she says, this is the house. This is the house that I have been drawing my whole life. Yep. She just knew it.
She said that was my house and that was my bedroom.
Yeah. She just knew.
Yeah. She is no longer in this story that she's telling us referring to it as like, this looks familiar, or for some reason, she is saying, this is my house. That was my bedroom.
Yeah. She knows where her bedroom is. She knows this is the house she grew up in. And
yeah. She is now starting to identify this as,
So then she tells us about this dream that she'd had so many times. She's standing on the steps of a church, and then she walks down the street. 2 blocks to a cemetery. And she goes through the cemetery. She knows exactly where she's going. And in her dream, she comes up to a grave. And she knows that this is the grave of her grandmother. Okay? And every time she tries to see the name on the grave, she can't see it in her dream.
So I was listening to an educational podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Nateland.
That's not an educational podcast.
But they claimed in that podcast, and I haven't vetted this, that it's actually impossible to read or to like form letters to like make cohesive sentences and words in your dreams. That's just what made me think of.
Maybe. I don't know.
Do You are not a dreamer.
I'm not a dreamer.
Like, rarely do you wake up and say...
I maybe have one dream a year that I
and
will
even
remember.
that you can barely,
And
like...
I cannot remember details, period. In the story.
Yeah.
I am not a dreamer. I mean, yes, people, I know that everyone dreams at night. We all dream every night. I just am not the person that remembers.
Because my whole life, I have very vivid dreams, like that go on sometimes for long periods of time. I feel emotions. I dream in color. Anyways, but I don't, when I heard that on the podcast that they did on dreams, I was trying to remember. I don't think I've ever been able to read something in a dream. I've even tried to like use a phone in a dream before, and like all of a sudden, like the numbers are in the wrong spots and stuff like that. But anyways.
Yeah. No, I don't know. But this is a dream.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only reason I bring this up, I've had dreams before that feel very meaningful or real or like emotionally very connected to. So I understand waking up from a dream and realizing or feeling this connection to this dream as far as this lady's. And I've had reoccurring dreams my whole life too. Nothing along the lines of this where I feel like I'm another person.
No.
But yeah, I understand the dream aspect. I don't understand to the extent she went to try to solve this. But anyways, continue. That's just what it made me think of, is that I don't think that's abnormal.
So she says she has this dream hundreds of times.
Yeah.
She knows it so well. And as she's driving around Newport, guess what she finds?
The church.
The church with the steps.
Mm-hmm.
So she parks.
And she walks 2 blocks. Yep.
And she knows exactly where she's going. And she finds this headstone. And there it is. She's telling us the longest story about how finally she's going to get a name. So we get a name.
Okay.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Name is Mary Bevan Green. Born in 1862, died in 1939. She says, I finally have a name. They know this is the name of my grandmother. Okay?
Okay.
So, wild connection. Guess what we find out? The house that she parked at and said, that's the house I grew up in. That house belonged to
of the Greens.
The Greens.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? The Greens owned a fleet of stern wheelers.
Okay, that is weird.
But is it? We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. Is that weird?
If you take her story at face value, that is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Okay. So then we find out that she had a hypnosis session.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked her, well, what happened? You and Tommy Hicks were about to get married. What happened to Tom?
Yeah.
He died. When they were before they were to be wed, he had an accident on the stern wheeler. He fell off or what? She can't say exactly, but he died on one of the ships. Okay. In 1914, supposedly. That's what she says.
Okay.
Everything. So he says, well, then what did you do? And
this is this part of the...
She is pregnant with Tommy Hicks's kid.
Mm-hmm.
We learn from her hypnosis sessions. And she is so distraught over the death of Tommy that she walks out into the river behind the house in the winter and drowns herself. That's what she says, according to her story. So she died at that time. And Sheila knows that they're like, well, then where are you buried? Where is this? What did I say her name is? Sandra Jean Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
She says, well, I'm buried in an unmarked grave not far from my grandmother. And sure enough, just to the right of her grandmother's grave is a grave with a little baby angel, and it's an unmarked grave. Can you believe this? Can you believe it? What? So, Now let's get into some records, okay?
Okay. Yeah, we've got some names now.
Sandra Jean Jenkins. There's no records of her ever existing.
Okay.
All right. I know, people, you're surprised by this. I know you're surprised.
Because the census was going on at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, census has been going on since the 1800s.
Yeah. So there should be a record.
What about Tommy's parents? There is a farm that was registered to a Tom and Jenny Hicks.
Okay.
They don't know if they ever had a kid named Tommy, but
there's no record of them ever having a child.
Not that we have. Okay, so we don't really know if Tommy
a baptism record, death certificate, a birth certificate, nothing.
But this farm was registered to them in 1906. That's the only records we could find.
Okay,
supposedly Tommy Hicks's parents.
Okay.
She got in touch with the Green family, and they gave her a photo that was taken in 1908. And in the photo, it's the entire Green family. Okay, we're shown this picture.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people in this picture.
Lot of
there's
people
probably
in this.
45 people in it.
Oh, more than that.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. And every single one of them is identified, except for this one girl standing by herself. And she looks at this girl and she goes, that's her. That's Sandra Jean Jenkins. And according to Georgia, she tells us that a family member told her, we don't know who that girl is. She drowned out back. Okay. Cutscene. All right. So, is she reincarnated? We don't know. Is she Sandra Jean Jenkins, even though no records exist? We don't know. What do you think, Sierra?
This is complicated for me. Okay.
Is it? Is it complicated?
It is.
Okay. Really? This one's complicated for you?
Because of the belief of reincarnation. Okay. I believe in an afterlife. But my backup belief plan.
Your backup.
I'm really hoping that we're all good on the other side. But if we are not, and that theory doesn't end up panning out, my backup belief plan, if this will make sense to anyone who has like a backup plan to their backup plan, is that maybe we are just reincarnated and regenerated. And we go into the ground, we get back to the earth, and then we come back as something else, the essence of our spirits. I frankly would like to be reincarnated into a cat next time I come around. I also think I could do well with a lot of money, so I would love to be reincarnated as a queen or as a debutante of some sort. Here's the thing. I don't know what happens after we end our life here. Is it possible that reincarnation, because everything is reused and given back and rebirthed? Yeah, possibly. Do I think this lady is telling the truth about these feelings? No. I think this woman had some trauma as a child, and she has an escape into another personality. So that's why this is complicated for me, because I do believe that the people that practice and believe in the spiritual essence of reincarnation, it's a beautiful way to live your life, because you believe that putting good and being good allows you to come back as something good, right? This to me seems a little bit scammy, a little bit attention seeking.
Does it?
That's her. Okay. But I didn't do any research on this. So did you look into it?
Well, here's the thing. Just from watching it on Some Mysteries, I had already debunked it.
Well, the flowery words and stuff like that, it just seems...
That doesn't even...
Okay, all right.
Let me just give you my first debunking.
Okay.
The grandmother, Mary Bevan Green, born in 1862. So how old was the grandmother when she was born?
Like 30? Yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
1862, and she said she was born in like the 1890. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
33. 33 years old. Now, I actually found Mary Bevan Green on an ancestry website. She had her first kid in 1880. So she's saying, but there was no records on her first daughter having a child. Sandra Jean Jenkins would have to be the first daughter of Mary Bevan Green's daughter.
Okay.
No
It's a
records
tight
of that.
timeline. Yeah.
33 years old. Okay. Her dream was what? That she went to the church, walked, and visited her grandmother's grave.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she killed herself at 19 in 1914. Her
Yeah.
grandmother lived till 1939. How'd you visit a grave of a lady that hadn't died yet? I'd love to know that.
Yeah.
Love
Okay.
to know. Okay. Second, the picture was taken in 1908. How old did that girl look in that picture?
I don't know. They didn't hide. I don't remember. Like, did they point out the girl?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was watching it on YouTube and I don't know if it was like the shot. I couldn't see what the girl looked like.
Well, they're all adults around and she's standing just as tall as all the adults. In 1908, she'd be 13 years old.
Okay.
There's no way that girl in that picture is 13 years old.
Okay.
Those are the two things just from watching that is like, okay, no, absolutely not. Okay.
Okay.
And you say, what a coincidence. This grave green, the house green. When did she visit? 1985. This isn't stuff that Unsolved Mysteries is finding out with her.
Yeah.
She's had 5 years to concoct this story.
Okay, that is,
and
as I
tell
was
Unsolved
watching
Mysteries.
this, I realized, because I think a lot of Unsolved Mysteries, they're like, hey, we're going to set up for you to go here
Yeah.
and we're going to film your reaction, right? We were watching her reenact what she said that she discovered on her own.
We have to take that this lady is telling us she went here and had these experiences and found these things.
And that's where I think the flowery words come in. This woman is Delulu and likes to play pretend in the imagination and create some beautiful, hopeless, romantic story. The family's house, the greenhouse, was huge up on a hill, this big, white, beautiful colonial home. When they drove up to it, I was like, of course she thinks this is her house. Like, this was a prominent, well-known, wealthy family. She invented an entire, like, personality around this.
that house. So I lived in Indiana.
Did you look and see if that house is still around today?
No, I didn't. So, but
I bet if it is, it's beautiful.
well, here's the thing. I know why that house is beautiful. Okay. It's this tiny little town in Ohio. Okay. I lived in Indiana for a few years. When you would roll into a small town, there'd be this one house that stuck out.
Yeah.
Because that was
The wealthy family's home.
That was the ranch house that owned all the land beforehand. Yep. And then this town got bought. I remember we rolled into this one town and there was this beautiful house with spires and wraparound porch and this round porch. I was like, yeah, that was the house of the people that owned all this property way back in the day. So yeah, she probably picked it. That house probably stood out.
Well,
above
even in the
every
reenactment of her reenactment,
yeah,
it stood out. It's like up on the hill in the town. It's like the very first thing you're see.
Gonna notice.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I got more for you.
Okay, I'm excited.
This one's gonna blow your mind, and you all should be excited. We're gonna find out later. I didn't do research on this because I want it to be a surprise later.
Okay.
After this episode, a man calls the hotline and says, "I'm reincarnated Tommy Hicks."
What?
Yippers.
Okay. Is there going to be a love connection?
I hope so. I don't know.
You don't know?
I was going to find the episode. I was going to watch it, but I said, no, let's let this be a surprise. It's possible that Film Rise cut that one out. I hope not. But later this year, I think it's going to be in season 3. There's going to be a man that is coming forth to be
the reincarnated
of Tommy
of the Hicks. Derby hat. Oh, if he's wearing a derby hat in this reenactment, I am here for it. So we should have a watch party with all of the 600
people.
Club listeners.
Get excited. I got more for you.
Okay.
Okay. I dug into this lady. After this, she goes off the grid a little bit, but she shows back up.
Okay.
She did pass away in 2013.
Okay. R.I.P.
R.I.P. But I found this episode in 2006 of a show called Psychic Investigators. And there's a psychic by the name of Georgia Rudolph, who's a registered nurse.
She claims to be a psychic?
Who helped solve a murder in 1996, who claims to be a psychic and found her way onto that episode. And I watched it.
Uh-huh. It's her?
It's her. 100%. It is her. Guess where she lives?
Where?
That town in Ohio. Actually, she lives just on the other side in West Virginia.
So she's moved there.
Or she lived there.
Or she lived there. So she would have known all of the things.
She either moved there after or she lived there in the first place. And then she went on to claim to be a psychic and claimed to solve a murder of a guy that killed his husband or his wife.
Well, it's always the husband. So that wasn't a stretch there, Linda.
Well, if you watch, she claims that she knew where the body was buried and all this. It is wild. But this lady doesn't give up on her whatever. If she's not reincarnated, then she becomes a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Wild.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all the bombshells I got
Okay.
for you.
So what is your thoughts at the end of
Absolutely not. Reincarnation is not a thing. I don't believe it. Here's the thing.
this? That believes in nothing.
I do believe in things. I believe, I have said this before,
I
I
know.
am
We
a
all know what you're going to
God-fearing
say.
man.
Yes.
And I believe we have a soul.
Yeah.
And that soul just does not. That soul is me. And it just doesn't take another form or take another person and take another life. God gave me this life to perfect me and my soul. So my soul, it will die. And it will go back to where it needs to go. And it will move on to the next life. The next life is not another dude or
You're like,
whatever
I don't
it
want to
is.
do this again.
Yeah. So no, I don't believe reincarnation. That's my own personal religious belief.
Yeah.
I'm not here to dump on other people's beliefs at all. I don't believe this lady because the facts don't add up. And then when being reincarnated didn't work out, she claimed to be psychic.
Yeah.
So no. So this isn't even a thing on my belief on reincarnation. I'm not buying this story. I think she saw an opportunity to get on TV. I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe she was going to write a book about it.
Maybe.
I don't know. Like, I guess what was the end? I really think that the fact that she was adopted later in life, was in the foster care system, I think my personal opinion to me, and the fact that that's when the drawings and stuff started popping up, I think that there was a part of this girl who daydreamed herself into a different place out of protecting herself.
And that's very possible.
Instead of ever dealing with that she just went deeper and deeper down this and created something that wasn't there.
Like, and I dug to see if there was a never Mary Jean Jenkins or whatever. There's nothing, especially that's tied to this family that she says she's tied to. So
how do you think that family feels? Would that be weird if someone just showed up at your family reunion and was like, hey, I'm the reincarnated version of someone who you guys...
I don't know. I don't really believe. I don't believe that someone's told her.
I can't even believe they gave her a photo.
Yeah. I don't believe that someone told her that family member, the one you're pointing at, trying that back. I think that's just...
You think she just made that up?
I just think it's her trying to tie herself to this story.
Mm-hmm.
she probably does believe it, or she did wholeheartedly. She probably truly was convinced.
Yeah.
But the facts just don't add up. They
Yeah.
just don't.
All right. Well, there you go. Reincarnation. It's nice to have a fun. We crop circles last week. Reincarnation this week.
Loch Ness Monster.
Loch Ness. Nessie next week. I love talking about the Loch Ness Monster because I believe in her. And I'm going to guess that Ben doesn't.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to see.
I don't know, Lassie.
I don't think that's how it goes.
I'm going to do an Irish accent next week or Scottish.
I actually think I haven't finished the episode.
Yeah.
It should just started. I think they're trying to say there's a Loch Ness Monster in Canada, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that until we get to it next week.
Canadians, get your own stories. Come on. We got Bigfoot. They got Loch Ness Monster. You guys come up with some maple syrup loving dwelling creature.
We got Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Ireland. Is it Ireland?
I think it's in Scotland.
They got the Loch Ness Monster. Yeah. You know? What do you guys got?
All right. Well, real quick before we move on to our question, just wanted to remind you guys all to please rate and review us and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at unsolvedcouplepod. You can email us at unsolvedcouplepodcast@gmail.com. You can find our Facebook discussion group, Unsolved Couple Podcast, and stream us and download us anywhere you get your podcast. We are also on YouTube. And Ben, here's your question.
All right.
If you were to have an autobiography written about you, what would be the title?
What would be the title?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I can honestly say I've never thought about that.
So I thought about this because I've noticed this trend now with celebrities and even like weird. And here's the thing. I love Nate Bargatze. He's a funny comic, but he wrote an autobiography book about himself. Who's reading that?
I don't
know. Laura, or who's the older lady? And that's the thing. It's been in weird circles. I've noticed people are of any fame and notoriety are writing autobiographies. And I don't, because to me, autobiographies are for people that have like done crazy things.
Yeah.
Being famous is not a crazy thing unless something insane happened to you during that or an experience. But they all have pretty like catchy titles to it. And so I thought, what would my title be if I was to write a useless autobiography that nobody would read?
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought about writing anything about your life or anything like that?
I thought about a while ago. I think when I was like in my first couple years of college and I was really poor and had like no television, no entertainment source, I thought about writing a book loosely based on just like a girl growing up in a small town, and like kind of the fantasy life. I think I would have like friends with animals and stuff like that, but not anything that would have been like, oh, this was Sierra Houck growing up.
Or just anything you learned or experienced that you think you can share with the world.
No. And I even have a podcast.
Which you share with
the world. Share with the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess maybe I think I have enough opinions about.
I mean, technically this is, but we're not talking about ourselves and our lives the whole episode.
No. In fact, we try to limit that because I don't think people care. My life's not that interesting.
I find your life very interesting.
I find your life very interesting and also hot. Okay, so.
I have thought, not for anyone else, but for my kids. The job I do, I do have some wild
You
stories.
do have some wild stories. And in fact, a couple people in your line of work after retirement have written wild stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have published books on it.
Yeah, I would never publish a book. I've only thought about sitting down and writing my stories out, because some of them are wild and crazy and fun, and that like when we were trying to get a guy, and Porter had challenged me to yell at this guy, "Stop in the name of the law." And I was with my partner, and I told him I would.
I don't know how old Porter was at the time, but he was convinced that is how people arrested other people.
Yeah. And we came
Stop in the name of the law.
We came up on this guy to make an arrest, and he tried to run. And I yelled at, I was chasing him. And as I'm chasing him, I yelled at him, "Freeze! Stop in the name of the law." And my partner just almost stopped and looked at me and was like, "What in the world?" And I started laughing. And even the guy like looked at me like, "What in the world?" And it
That's
was super
the title
fun.
of your book. That is the title of your book right there.
Freeze, stop in the name of the law. Here's the thing. I came home. I did it just to come home and tell him that story.
Yeah.
But that's just one. So I've only ever thought about like writing in a journal some sort of
legacy stuff to your children, so that they can have those stories.
Because I'd love for my grandkids to like, what did Grandpa do? Like, oh, Grandpa did this, and let me tell you some stories.
Yeah,
there's some crazy, funny stories that have happened. So there you go. Maybe that's the name of my book. But I am in the same boat. I don't think I have anything to share with the world. I have never considered writing an autobiography because, I don't know. But I've honestly never thought about that. So I don't know. Maybe it's Ben doesn't believe in anything. I don't know. What is your title?
It would probably be something along the lines like, "Oh crap, was I supposed to write a title? Like, or has anyone seen my phone? Or like,
I forgot what my title was.
I forgot what my title was. I wrote it down somewhere.
Has anyone seen my title?
Has anyone seen my title? That's what it would be. Has anyone seen my title? I wrote it down. I put it somewhere. And when I put it that place, I thought to myself, I will absolutely remember where this is at. So, that would be it. There's no way with my ADHD and dyslexia I could write a book that would make sense to anybody. I can't even hardly finish a story to friends half the time without side quest.
Listen, I think the only thing on that is life is literally just a bunch of stories that should be told to at least family members.
Yeah.
I was in the car with William the other day, our oldest son. And I turned to him and I said, "Tell me a story." And he, "What? Just tell me a story." And we talked about it. I was like, life is stories. Just tell them. They're fun.
Yeah.
Anything. And so he told me a great story.
Did he make it up, or was it a real story?
No, I told him, like, "Oh, just tell me a story of your life." I was like, that's what life is. It's just, life is just a bunch of stories. Here, sorry, I'm getting into
Okay, I have a story for all of our listeners, and they can help me solve a mystery of this. I grew up listening to this story from my father.
All right.
And I tried to look it up because I've now told my children this story.
Okay.
And I don't know if my dad made it up, or if his father told it to him, or it comes from somewhere else. But the story goes like this. Once upon a time, in the land of Oompa-Doo, there was a little girl named Sierra. And she came up to her father and said, "Dad, will you tell me a story?" And he said, "Absolutely. It goes like this. Once upon a time, in the land of Oompa-Doo." And it goes on like that until, as a child, and my dad, every time I'd say something to my dad about, "Dad, tell me a story," or "Can I have a bedtime story," or whatever, this was his go-to. And so I've now done that.
Terrible story.
I know it is a terrible story. So I don't know. Did anyone else ever hear the story about someone in the land of Oompa-Doo? I don't even know how to spell it. I tried to look it up one time, the origins of...
Sounds like a Willy Wonka story.
Exactly. So There's a story for our listeners. Until next week, when Ben and I are back to recap another episode of
Unsolved Mysteries.
Bye.